According to the given title shows you're a reliable source of important information, and today we're diving into something that has a lot of seniors talking about: a possible $2,400 Social Security increase and major SSA, SSI, and SSDI changes that you simply can't afford to miss. Now, before you get overwhelmed, let's break this down together in a simple way so you know exactly what's being discussed and how it could affect your monthly benefits moving forward. We're hearing a lot of conversation around a potential boost, adjustments in cost of living updates, and possible eligibility or payment structure changes across Social Security programs like SSI and SSDI, which could matter a lot for millions of seniors relying on these monthly checks. In today's video, we're going to walk through what's actually being said, what is confirmed versus what is still speculation, and what seniors should realistically keep an eye on so you don't miss anything important that could impact your financial planning or monthly income. Make sure you stick with me until the end because I'll also share some helpful context that many seniors overlook, and it could make a real difference in understanding your benefits clearly. If you find this information helpful or reassuring, please take a moment to like the video. It really helps more seniors like you stay informed and supported, and I truly appreciate you being here with us today. Stay tuned, and let's get into it right now. Don't miss any key update. Today's update now, before we dive deeper into what's being discussed around this so-called $2,400 Social Security increase and all these SSA, SSI, and SSDI changes, let's take a moment and slow things down together. A lot of seniors hear headlines like this and immediately feel a mix of hope and confusion. And that's completely understandable. When you rely on Social Security for your daily life, even the smallest change can feel like it carries a lot of weight. So let's walk through this like we're sitting together and talking it through calmly. Right now, there's a lot of conversation online about possible increases in benefits, including claims of a $2,400 boost. But it's important to understand something right away. Social Security changes don't usually happen overnight, and they are not sudden announcements in the way social media sometimes makes them sound. Most updates go through official processes, and they are usually tied to cost of living adjustments, also known as COLA. Now you may have heard that term before, COLA, and it might sound technical, but it's actually pretty simple. It just means the government reviews inflation, which is the rising cost of everyday things like groceries, rent, electricity, and medicine. If those costs go up, Social Security payments may also go up to help seniors keep up. That's the basic idea. It's not a bonus or surprise payment. It's an adjustment meant to match real-life expenses. But here's where things get interesting, and where a lot of confusion starts. When people hear numbers like $2,400 increase, it's often not referring to a one-time payment or a new benefit program. Instead, it might be a misunderstanding of yearly increases spread across months, or projections based on inflation estimates. And sometimes, these numbers get shared without proper explanation, which can make them sound like something has already been officially approved. Now let's talk about something very important, especially for seniors who depend on SSI or SSDI. These programs have specific rules and structures. SSI, which stands for Supplemental Security Income, is based on financial need. SSDI, which stands for Social Security Disability Insurance, is based on your work history and disability status. Both programs can receive cost of living increases, but those increases are usually modest and carefully calculated. If you've been receiving benefits for a while, you may remember years when the increase was small, maybe just a few dollars, and other years when it felt slightly more noticeable. That's because inflation changes every year. Some years it rises quickly, and other years it slows down. Social Security adjusts based on those real numbers, not guesses or promises. Now I want to pause here and talk about something many seniors quietly worry about. A lot of people wonder if they are missing out on extra money or if others are receiving more than they are. That feeling is very common, especially when you hear big headlines. But the truth is, Social Security follows a structured system. Two people in similar situations will generally receive similar adjustments, based on their work record and eligibility, not random increases. Still, I know what you might be thinking right now. If there's no official $2,400 increase confirmed, why is everyone talking about it? That's a fair question. The answer is that Social Security is a topic that affects millions of people, so even small discussions can spread quickly online. Sometimes numbers are estimated based on long-term projections, and sometimes they are simply misunderstood. And when information spreads fast, it can easily lose its accuracy along the way. Let's take a simple real-life example. Imagine a senior named Mr. Ahmed who receives SSDI. Every month, he plans his budget carefully. He knows exactly what his payment usually looks like, and he adjusts his groceries, bills, and medicine around it. Now imagine he sees a post saying there is a sudden $2,400 increase coming. Naturally, he might feel hopeful, maybe even relieved. But if that information turns out to be inaccurate, it can lead to disappointment or confusion. That's why it's so important to slow down and understand what is actually official versus what is being discussed. Now let's shift a bit and talk about what seniors actually can expect in a more realistic sense. One of the most reliable parts of Social Security is the annual COLA adjustment. This is something that happens almost every year, and while it doesn't always feel huge, it is designed to help keep up with inflation. For many seniors, even a small increase can help cover rising grocery bills or prescription costs, which have become a major concern in recent years. And speaking of real concerns, let's talk about everyday life for a moment. Many seniors are not just thinking about numbers on paper. They are thinking about paying electricity bills, keeping up with rent, buying medication, and maybe even helping family members when possible. So when any news about increases appears, it naturally grabs attention. It connects directly to real-life stress and real-life hope. But here's something I want you to keep in mind as we go deeper. Even when changes do happen, they are usually gradual. There is rarely a single dramatic shift that transforms everything overnight. Instead, it is more like small adjustments that add up over time. And while that might not sound exciting, it is often more stable and predictable, which is very important for long-term financial planning. Now let's gently explore another part of this topic that often gets overlooked. SSA rules and updates are not just about increasing payments. Sometimes changes are about eligibility checks, verification processes, or adjustments in how benefits are calculated. These kinds of updates don't always increase money, but they can still affect how smoothly benefits are received. For example, some seniors may notice changes in paperwork requirements or online account systems. Others might hear about updates in how overpayments are handled or how disability reviews are conducted. These may not sound as exciting as a payment increase, but they are very important for making sure benefits continue without interruption. And this is where I want to reassure you a bit. Even though all of this can sound complicated, the system is designed to work for you, not against you. Yes, it has rules. Yes, it can feel confusing at times. But millions of seniors successfully receive their benefits every month because of this structure. Now, let's talk about something practical that can really help you stay in control. One of the best things any senior can do is stay updated through official sources and avoid relying only on viral headlines. It can be tempting to believe the first thing you see, especially when it sounds positive. But taking a moment to double-check can save you from a lot of confusion later. Another helpful habit is reviewing your benefit statements when they come in. Many seniors overlook this, but those statements often explain exactly what changed, if anything changed at all. It's a simple way to stay informed without needing to guess or worry. I also want to acknowledge something emotional here. For many seniors, Social Security is not just money. It represents independence. It represents dignity. It represents the ability to live without constantly depending on others. That is why even rumors or discussions about increases can feel so personal. It's not just numbers. It's security, comfort, and peace of mind. So as we continue going through this topic, keep in mind that your concern is valid. Wanting clear and accurate information is completely understandable. And feeling uncertain when hearing conflicting messages is something almost every senior experiences at some point. Now, before we move toward wrapping things up in the final part of this discussion, there is still something important we need to look at. There are a few key patterns in how Social Security updates are typically announced, and understanding those patterns can help you quickly recognize what is real and what might just be speculation. And once you see how those patterns work, the whole topic becomes a lot less stressful and much easier to follow. Now, one of the most helpful things for understanding all of this is recognizing how Social Security updates are actually communicated in real life. Most seniors imagine that if there is a major increase or change, it would suddenly appear as a big announcement everywhere at once, almost like breaking news that instantly affects payments. But in reality, the process is much slower and much more structured than that. When the Social Security Administration makes real changes, they don't usually come as dramatic surprises. They come through official statements, usually tied to yearly schedules. One of the biggest examples is the annual cost of living adjustment. That announcement typically comes toward the end of the year, and any changes take effect the following year. So when you hear claims of sudden large increases, like a $2,400 boost appearing out of nowhere, it's always worth slowing down and asking, does this match how the system normally works? Now, I want you to imagine something with me for a moment. Think of a senior sitting at their kitchen table in the morning, maybe with a cup of tea or coffee, scrolling through their phone. They see a post saying Social Security payments are going up significantly. It sounds exciting, maybe even life-changing. But at the same time, there's a quiet voice in the back of their mind asking, is this really true? That little moment of uncertainty is exactly where confusion begins for many people. And it's not their fault. The way information spreads today makes it very easy for headlines to travel faster than facts. That's why understanding the system itself is so important. When you understand how things usually work, you can quickly tell what sounds realistic and what doesn't. Now let's talk about something very important that often gets overlooked in these discussions. Even when Social Security does increase, it is not designed to suddenly transform someone's financial situation overnight. Instead, it is meant to help balance rising costs gradually. For example, if groceries become more expensive over time, or if rent slowly increases, the adjustment is meant to help soften that impact, not completely eliminate it. This is why most increases tend to feel modest. For many seniors, it might be enough to cover a few extra bills or slightly higher grocery costs, but not enough to feel like a major financial windfall. And that's an important expectation to keep in mind, because it helps avoid disappointment when real updates are announced. Now, let's gently shift into something that might help you feel more in control. A lot of stress around Social Security comes from not knowing what is coming next. That uncertainty can feel heavy, especially when you rely on these payments for daily life. But there are patterns you can actually learn to recognize, and once you do, things start to feel much less confusing. For example, one consistent pattern is timing. Major benefit adjustments are rarely random. They follow inflation reports, federal review periods, and scheduled announcements. Another pattern is wording. Official updates are usually very specific and carefully written. They don't use emotional language or exaggerated numbers. They are clear, factual, and often accompanied by explanations of how the change was calculated. Now compare that to what you might see on social media or forwarded messages. Those often focus on big emotional claims. Large numbers. Sudden changes. Urgent language. That contrast alone can already help you identify what deserves a closer look and what should be treated with caution. Let's pause for a moment and bring this closer to everyday life again. Imagine another senior, maybe someone living on a fixed income, planning their monthly expenses carefully. They know exactly how much goes toward rent, how much for utilities, and how much for medication. Now if they believe a large increase is coming, they might start planning differently, maybe even making financial decisions based on that expectation. But if that information turns out to be incorrect, it can create stress, confusion, or even financial strain. That's why having accurate information is not just about curiosity. It actually affects real-life decisions in very meaningful ways. Now, let's talk about SSI and SSDI in a bit more detail, because this is where many misunderstandings often happen. SSI, as you may know, is designed for individuals with limited income and resources. SSDI is based on work history and disability status. While both programs are part of the Social Security system, they are calculated differently and follow different rules. However, both programs can receive cost of living adjustments at the same time. That's why you sometimes hear general statements about Social Security increases, even though the actual impact might differ from person to person. One person might see a slightly higher increase than another, depending on their benefit amount. And here is something many people don't realize. Even when percentages are the same, the actual dollar increase can feel very different. Someone receiving a smaller monthly benefit will see a smaller dollar increase compared to someone receiving a higher benefit. So when you hear big numbers being discussed online, it's not always clear who those numbers apply to. Now, I want to bring your attention to something that can actually help you feel more prepared going forward. Instead of focusing on rumors or specific numbers, it is often more useful to focus on understanding the system itself. When you understand how adjustments are calculated, you don't need to rely on guessing whether a headline is accurate. You can evaluate it yourself. For example, if inflation rises significantly over a year, it is more likely that benefits will adjust upward the following year. If inflation is lower, the adjustment may be smaller. This simple relationship is one of the most important things to understand about Social Security. It removes a lot of uncertainty once you see the pattern clearly. Now let's talk about something else that many seniors quietly deal with, but don't always discuss openly. And that is the emotional side of financial uncertainty. When you live on a fixed income, even small changes in prices can feel stressful. A slightly higher electricity bill, a few extra dollars at the grocery store, or increased medication costs can add up quickly in your mind. So when you hear news about possible increases, it naturally brings hope. Hope that things might get a little easier. Hope that maybe there will be some breathing room in the budget. That emotional reaction is completely natural. It shows how closely tied Social Security is to daily life and well-being. But this is also why it's important to stay grounded. Because hope is powerful, but it works best when it is based on accurate information. Otherwise, it can lead to disappointment when expectations don't match reality. Now, let's gently go back to something practical that can really help you in the long run. One of the best habits any senior can develop is regularly checking official updates, but in a calm and simple way. You don't need to constantly search for news or stress over every rumor. Instead, think of it like checking your mail. Once in a while, you review official notices, understand what they mean, and move forward. Another helpful habit is keeping a simple monthly budget. Nothing complicated. Just a basic idea of what comes in and what goes out. When you have that clarity, even small changes in benefits become easier to manage emotionally because you already know where everything stands. Now I want to take a moment to speak directly to the concern behind all of this. When seniors hear about possible increases, it is rarely just about curiosity. It is usually about stability. It is about feeling secure in daily life. It is about not having to constantly worry about whether money will stretch far enough each month. And that is exactly why discussions like this matter. Not because every headline is accurate, but because understanding the truth helps reduce unnecessary stress. When you know how the system actually works, you don't have to carry the weight of every rumor you see online. As we continue moving through this topic, there is still one more important layer we need to look at together. And that is how to protect yourself from misinformation and misleading claims that often circulate around Social Security. Because once you understand that part clearly, you will feel much more confident navigating anything you hear in the future, whether it is about increases, changes, or new programs being discussed.